Alright, looks like we are live and going. Hi everybody, welcome to another camera class. I am Saxon, your host. I want to apologize for yesterday. I was in a camera convention out in Indiana, so I unfortunately couldn't be here to teach the class. I know the store sent out a memo, but it doesn't look like everybody got it quite, so there was a couple people who were a little upset. So I do apologize for not being here. I should have given ample time and notice for it, but it kind of came up and we sent the notice out a few days before. So anywho, thanks for coming in today. Today is a beyond the traditional camera class. And this is one I always enjoy talking about. People always ask, what exactly does this mean? And it's pretty simple. It's the fact of a lot of us will get into cameras and we'll buy, our DSLR, our mirrorless camera, and a bunch of other equipment. And while that's fantastic, we might need it for some other purpose that our regular camera just can't, afford to get to. And so I like to break it down with a couple different things for, what we're talking about. And right now, what we're looking at here is it's not your traditional mirrorless DSLR or point-and-shoot model. No, instead we're talking about things like GoPros, Insta360 cameras, DJI action cameras, drones, really anything that's not your regular traditional camera. Why would you want to advance past that? So I mentioned it a second ago, but really to break that down is portability and travel. It's the fact that you can take this with you really anywhere that you go, and it makes your visit or your filming experience or photo taking journey a little bit easier and better. Durable. Durability is huge. Things like GoPro and everything else have a really strong rating on drop, and they're pretty much shatterproof for the most part. And waterproofing goes into that as well too. With the standard GoPro and DJI camera, you can take that 30-something feet underwater with no issues. Record time is fantastic. If you are in the video game, you're able to record for long distances or long periods of time, which can help if you're trying to make a longer video or to do something that you're going to edit and put together later. And then ability to fly or record over great distances. If you are someone who is into drones or into the idea of flying and recording at the same time, the ability for you to go and fly is really fantastic, and that's a really big portion of it. I got one from UZ Air. Hello, I started a jewelry commercial shoot with my DSLR, and I want to know which light should I use to focus the jewelry besides soft lights. Soft lights are going to probably be your best thing, because if you're looking at jewelry, right, depending on the material, whether it's silver, gold, or if it has any type of crystals or glassware involved in there, they're going to create a lot of shining. So soft lights are going to be great. Making sure you're using like a 3-point lighting method where you have a light behind, a light in front, and then a light at the side as your secondary light. So key light, frame light, and then backlight. Those are the 3 lights that you want to make sure you have. And you want to make sure you diffuse that light, make it softer, because if it's too hard, that'll catch off the jewelry and it'll probably make it stand out or pop a little too much. The only other thing I could think of is if you're using all of the right lighting methods and soft lights still aren't enough, try then turning the soft lights up a little bit more, take away what's making them soft, which should be a diffuser, and then afterwards in your editing program, whether that's Photoshop or, why am I blanking? Photoshop or, why is it slipping? It's the other photo one that Adobe has. Photoshop and Lightroom, sorry. Photoshop or Lightroom, you could probably take away that harsh glare that's coming off of it, but really soft lights is going to be the main purpose or main focus, and making sure you use like a 3-point method system of lighting that should help increase or help fix that issue that you're experiencing, at least in my past experience. And I hope that helps. But yeah, when it comes to water, anything that involves glare, shine, or just that metallic surface, you're going to want to make sure that whatever lighting you're using stays soft. Otherwise, it's going to be harsh and won't help pop off. But to get back into the class, Why do we advance past our camera? It's for all the things listed below there. It's for the ability for us to have new and exciting ways to take photo and video that doesn't just come from our standard camera, something that's going to give us a little bit of a boost, whether it's to our hobby, our business, our just general interest in photography or videography. Now, I start with this just like in the intro class, but where do your pictures go, and make sure you have 2 of them. We're of course talking about SD cards. So SD cards are important to this whole process. SD cards are how we save all of our information from our physical camera. Some of the cameras that we're going to be talking about have 0 to some internal storage. So we want to make sure having an SD card is a priority in this. When you're purchasing this product or getting into it, that's the one thing that most companies never give you, if not all companies don't give you any form of SD card. That's usually something they expect you, the user, to be using or to be getting after. And I'm going to make one more comment on that. The reason I say make sure you have 2 of them is that sometimes the card itself can get fried out or it can stop working. And if you only rely on one card, you get to a photo shoot or a video shoot, and now they don't have now your card doesn't work, you're going to be really bummed that unfortunately you won't be able to record that day. Okay, so next thing we're going to be talking about are micro SD cards. They're about the same the proportion, or let's say same saving caliber as your standard SD card. The only difference is that they're much smaller. They're micro. Typically, when you buy a micro SD card, you're going to get an adapter for that, and that's one right next to it, the rugged micro SD adapter. That would be inserted inside, or the micro SD would be inserted inside that, and then you can use the standard card reader for that. But something to keep in mind is that most cameras that we're talking about today have some to no internal storage, just like I mentioned. So you want to have an SD card. You should have one just in general. You want to make sure you have something with a good read and write speed. It's real easy to go online and see a nice SD card for a few dollars and pick that up and think that, okay, it's got 300 or 256 gigabytes, that should be plenty. But in reality, it doesn't have a good read and write speed, meaning that some of our information will take longer to be written onto the card, which in turn can kill the battery, can maybe slow things down a little bit, and it can kind of ruin the overall experience for us. So I usually recommend try to get around something that's about 60 megabytes or faster for the read and write, just so that way we're ensuring that our video and photo is properly received onto our physical camera. From there too, I would recommend 64 gigabytes or higher. It's real easy to go out and get a 32 or a 16. They're cheap, they're readily available. However, though, that speed won't really acquaint well to what we're trying to accomplish here, which is making sure that we have enough space to do plenty of 4K video, 8K video, whatever our camera or our camcorder or our device in general is able to get. So have fast read and write speed on there. Make sure it's something that's at least 64 gigabytes or higher. Personally, for me, all of my cameras have a 256 in there. There are plenty of times where I go out and do photo shoots and I completely forget to download and save all my information. For example, I was just at that camera convention. I had my camera here. Prior to that, the White Sox were at home and they were possibly going to have the worst losing record in baseball. And prior to that, I had a meeting for some other clubs and other things that I'm involved with. So this camera is 4 days into shooting, has over 5,000 photos on there, and I have yet to download them off the camera because I've been so busy. So it's important to keep that in mind, that the more and more time that you spend doing this, the maybe less time you have to download and get everything saved onto the computer. Because of that, you might then end up having a lot of information on one card, and then you could run out. So try to get something that's 64 gigabytes or higher. Your picture should never live on your memory card. The idea with the memory card is that you want to make sure that you download everything from one device to the other. The way that I look at a memory card is that it's your vehicle transportation to get from camera to computer. So the photos and videos should never live on there. Instead, they should be used as a tool to get from one device to the other, and that's my strongest recommendation. So, to make sure that we properly do everything step by step, we want to make sure that we're doing this process or a version of this. Now, I do tell customers and people and students and anybody who's getting into this that you want to make sure that you follow these steps to begin with. If there's a faster way for you to do it, then by all means go that route. It's just one of those things that if you don't do the step-by-step process, you can lose, you can damage, you could actually severely lose images, and at the end of the day, if you spent all this time going out, recording, taking pictures, and doing this process, it'd be a real shame for you to not have all of this. So, first and foremost, land the drone, turn off the camera unit. This at least ensures that you've parked, you've turned everything off, and now we wait 5 seconds. This part makes sure that you are giving the camera or the device proper time to cool off, shut down, and then move forward. But read and write speed is really where this plays a factor. By waiting 5 seconds, you're ensuring that the information that's being recorded and taken is now being saved properly and written onto your card properly, and that's a big part of it. From there, then remove the card. Take the card out of the camera and now place this into a card reader. It's best practice to remove the physical card. Try to avoid using the camera to send the pictures to and from whatever device you're saving this to. The reason being is that if you're using a card reader, you're at least ensuring that you're removing the physical card from the camera, and you just have that in your space where you're downloading your images. I have a couple different examples of accidentally spilling liquids or waters or anything onto your device and frying it out. It'll then could possibly lose the photos, the videos in the process of that. If for any reason the transfer is unsuccessful and it goes from one device to the other, there's a chance it could get lost in that transferring process. By making sure you remove the card and inserting it into the card reader, you're just making sure that you're protecting your other camera, your device that you spent more money on. So I definitely think that it's a worthwhile experience. That's not to say that you can't use the apps and the programs that are developed and made for these products to transfer. I mean, they're fantastic. The Insta360 app allows you to edit and customize your video in a beautiful way. You've got things like GoPro, which offers something similar. DJI has a really nice cloud-based solution too. There's plenty of reasons why you can do that. I just prefer to keep the image and the video in the most perfect quality possible by transferring from one device to the other via the card. When you look at card readers, you're going to see a lot of them out there. I would recommend one of the 4 here, but I would also just say invest in a good one. Again, you can find cheap card readers for a couple bucks. They'll only last you a few years and then they'll die out. Spend the money on it. Make sure you buy yourself nicer gear so that way you're able to keep this for a long period of time. One of the complaints that I always hear from customers when it comes to photography and videography is that over a certain period of time, my devices, my products, they almost become outdated or useless. And so to ensure that you're not doing that, spend the extra money if you can and try to buy something that's a little bit stronger and nicer so you have it for a longer period of time. Next thing is you're going to copy your photos to a destination folder. Now, a destination folder can be whatever you want it to be. However, what I do recommend is that you name the destination folder something you're going to remember. So for example, if I took photos at, let's say, my kid's baseball game, my kid plays for the Rhinos, and they played the Mariners, I might say Rhinos versus Mariners and put the date. Let's say it was September 22nd. Then I would make sure that all the photos I took from that event go into that folder. What I'm doing is finding a tracking system to find this later. If it gets buried within files after files, you might forget where it was, and then you're looking things up and digging through thousands and thousands of photos with no end in sight. I'm very particular and anal about how I display and have my photos saved. So what I typically do is go year by year, month by month, and then dates of what happened within that. So for example, if I go on my hard drive today, it's got 2012 all the way to 2024. When I click on one of those folders, inside those folders I then have April, May, June, July, August, September, etc. When I click on any of those months, I then have photos of the event I took photos at. So if I click on, let's say, September, then I might have the baseball game that I'm talking about in particular. Those little types of things and details, if you can process and do that on a regular basis, you're helping yourself make sure that you can find all your photos and your work later on, which again, for so many people is so important. If you're using Explorer, Windows will be the way that, or if you're using Windows, it's Explorer, and if you're using Mac, it's Finder. And then my next recommendation is to copy, do not move photos to a second place. By moving them, we're just basically putting them into the other location and taking them away from their first location. What I'd recommend is to copy them over to one other location, like an external hard drive, like something like Google Photos or Prime Photos. This way, not only do you have your main file, but now you have a backup file as well, so it's easy to track down and find. After you've done this, eject the card before physically removing it. So with that, depending on the system you're using, you can either left click and then hit eject, or if you're on MacBook, you can drag it over to the trash can. Once that's done, format the card in the reader. Format the card in the camera. I don't like to erase it in the reader. I would rather make sure that the card is primed and ready for the camera that I'm continuously using it on. Plus then too, I don't have to sit there and drag all the photos to the trash can. I could simply just go into my menu system for my camera, hit the format button, and then hit yes, and then it'll delete all the photos and prime my card so it's ready to go for the camera that I'm using. Your backup plan, or your actual plan as a whole, so you've got your SD card where the photos are being saved to initially. You've got your laptop where you're downloading all the images to. You then have your hard drive, that's your first or possibly secondary location that you're going to save things to. And if you then choose to do that, you can also do a cloud-based solution too as a secondary backup to another backup like your hard drive. This is a good process and a good way of doing things to ensure that not only do you have multiple forms of these photos, but that you're following a regimen or a set of steps in order to make sure that the photos get properly put in places so that way you're not scrambling later on. I've taken plenty of pictures for events and for different people and companies, and one of the worst things you could do is accidentally send them photos from some other job. They won't take you as seriously, they might have some complaints, and so just by making sure you transfer them or have them saved properly, it makes them a whole lot easier to find them later on, especially if you're doing this for work or for hire. I do recommend trying a cloud-based solution. It's a great idea. There's things like Google Drive or Prime Photos, which are free if you have the programs already. OneDrive is great too. That goes through Microsoft and Outlook. If you are a Outlook user for work, that's a great solution. And then Adobe Creative Cloud is also fantastic too. If you're not familiar, they give you apps like Photoshop, Lightroom, and even apps like InDesign or Premiere Pro or any of the other layout or art-based programs for your computer and digital life. With that being said, then they also have their own cloud on there where you can save your images and your designs, so that way for later use you can then access them wherever you're at. It's a great way to just ensure that everything is saved and ready to go in whatever design it is. Let's go through a tour of your device. Now, this is my favorite part. In this class, what I'm doing is breaking down the functionality, the design, and kind of the layout of where everything is on your product. With that being said, If it pertains to you, definitely keep going. If you are interested in these products, use this as a kind of a learning experience to figure out why you would want to get one of these and how simple or how complicated they can be. I try to keep these as simple as possible so everyone can understand. So we got 4 different devices to talk about, but we're going to start with GoPro/action cameras. Now the reason I always say GoPro and not just action cams in general is so many people out there nowadays are used to GoPros, or at least used to the name. And that's a really household name when it comes to these small portable action cameras that you can take with you from place to place. So I highly recommend, if you're looking at these, GoPros are awesome. However though, brands like DJI and Insta360 make fantastic products as well too. Things like their Action 5 or their Go 3, or even some of the other models that they have too, like the Ace or Ace Pro. Those are all great cameras. They're very durable, they're waterproof, and you really can play with them in fun, unique ways that you might not be able to use your mirrorless or DSLR. Talk about how the camera functions and works. When it comes to GoPro's action cameras, you're typically going to see 2 buttons. The capture button and the power button. The capture button does exactly what it does. It takes a photo or starts and stops your video for you. One click does this, one click stops it. The power button, on the other hand, has 2 functions. If you hold down the button, it's going to actually turn your unit on and off. That's what a power button does. However though, typically because you have to hold it down to turn it on and off, it also then has a toggle switch where you can switch between the different modes. Things like photo, video, or time-lapse are all available through the mode button. It makes it really easy to switch and make sure you're on the correct program that you want to be when using your camera. Keep moving from that, you have then the screen, and your screen is everything. I think that's extremely important to say and understand, because without the screen, you're really not going to be able to use this camera to its full ability. That being said, what does the screen actually do? Controls things like your FPS, your frames per second, your angle and lens millimeter side. For example, are you wide? And if you're wide, it should be about 16 to 34 millimeters. Your video quality. Are you shooting HD, 2.7, or 4K? Some of these cameras can even get all the way up to 8K. Hindsight. This is very similar to autofocus and the focusing parameters on your mirrorless or DSLR. However, GoPro and DJI refer to it as hindsight. Hypersmooth. This is your ability to have stabilization in the video. Front screen will show you your video duration, and it'll also then give you a selfie mode so you can see exactly what you're recording as you're using the camera. Great features on there, simple things. For the most part, to customize the video and the experience for the user, the back screen is going to be the main component for that. Now the modes, I talked briefly about that with the power button and being able to toggle. But really to break it down, photo allows you to capture stills and frames rather than take videos. Time-lapse, video will record over a duration of time, anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. Then it plays that back within seconds or minutes. So it's a really nice way, let's say you got a sunset and it takes an hour and a half for the sun to fully set. You can then record that complete thing and play it back within 20-30 seconds, which will look really pretty and beautiful and does a really fantastic job. Video, you can record video for whatever duration you want, whatever quality you want, and then you can also have features like Hypersmooth or Hindsight or any of those other things programmed and turned on for the video. So again, a very unique and fun experience. Here's just some examples of really what that all means, right? When it comes to this camera, they're durable. They have the ability to get beaten up. They're not for the faint of heart. You can really do anything you want with these cameras and get fantastic quality and fun video. So I highly recommend them. I think they're great products. And if you're someone who's in this ballpark of action or sports or just something unique that a regular big bulky DSLR or mirrorless camera couldn't do, then this might be the next move for you. Why use an action camera? And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You're someone who is different when it comes to what their hobbies are. You're not necessarily just taking pictures and videos and standing there with a big camera. You like to get your hands dirty, get into action, get something that's first-person point of view, or just take your cameras to different locations and heights that your traditional mirrorless or DSLR couldn't do. I think those are awesome and cool things that any user, anybody who's interested in that, can really do. Drones. Now, a lot of controversy has come up with the drones and DJI in particular. I do have a little bit of talk about that at the very end, but as far as we're concerned right now, drones are extremely popular. They're fun, and they're able for you to record video at heights that have only ever been done really with helicopters and maybe long poles with the camera glued on top. There really isn't anything quite like a drone. You got different drone types out there, and we'll break all those down so you get a better idea. The main one we're going to be focusing on, which is in this picture, is the quadcopter. Quad coming from the fact that it has 4 propellers. Single rotors are going to look like your typical helicopters. These are mainly fun little guys. They're not meant for anything too crazy. Quadcopters are the most popular style of drone sold on a consumer level. They've got 4 blades, just like we're talking about, and there's 2 different versions, the FPV and the Cine. FPV is a first-person experience. You need goggles, but it's really fun because you feel like a pilot. Cine drones are for filmmakers. They are quadcopters that have high-quality cameras, and a lot of them that have sensors have tracking features. A hexacopter is a 6-bladed copter, and it's great for filming and stability in the air. These are what professional movie makers and other people are using to record their stuff. You won't really see this on a consumer level that much. And a fixed-wing rotor, which is more of a plane experience. It's great for people who want less of copter experience and more of a plane or flying type experience. Again, not necessarily for your video or for that kind of stuff, more so for your person who's just looking for something fun. Your controllers, there's typically 2 different types of controllers out there. For those that don't want to spend a lot of money but want a controller of some sort, you're probably going to want to be looking at something like the standard controller that fits a phone in there. The other option is then going to be an RC controller, which is going to give you the flexibility of having the screen built on there. They're typically a little more expensive, but if you're someone who doesn't want to use your phone and waste your battery, the one with the built-in screen might be a really great option as well too. So most controllers will have the same controls that you're seeing on this list, but all are going to differ. However, though, if I were to bet my bottom dollar on this, I'm going to say that most of the things you're reading on this list are available with any drone that you purchase. So to kind of break that down, control sticks. They are what I said they are right there. They're control sticks. They're the ones that are controlling your flight's motions. Typically, you're going to see them do a few things. Up-down movement as well as rotation. The other is then going to really do your front to backwards and side to side movement. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory, but awesome products, really cool stuff that you get to record and see with this. And for the most part, using those control sticks are going to be the main bread and butter of you flying. Antennas, though, do play an important part in this. They should be on the top of the controller. Some are invisible, they're built into the controller. Some are showing. Best way I can describe this is if you ever had a phone that had a little antenna coming off of it. then you're probably familiar with that. When they switched and put the phone's antenna inside the phone, it was a big deal because it made the phone less bulky. So you're going to see a lot of different options out there for those. I personally have a drone controller with antennas on there, but that's the connection point between you and the drone. Your gimbal dial, that's rotational control over the drone's cameras. As you rotate the gimbal dial, it's going to move the camera either up and down or pan and tilt. Record button, pretty self-explanatory. It could also take the picture. You might have a focus or shutter dial. This will give you the ability to play with depth of field a little bit better, or the speed at which the video and shutter is being recorded. And then the RTH button, which is your ability to click the button and send it back home. Home being the point of where you took off. I do strongly recommend that you do not do this on a moving object, because technically when it comes back, it's going to go back to where you took off from. So if you are flying and let's say you're on a boat, it's going to go back to where you took off from on that boat. So easier bet said, fly it towards you and then land it manually via that way. Now, other important things to keep in mind. We just talked about the Pro versus phone controller, but I did want to kind of mention a little bit. But before I do, geofencing. Geofencing is a virtual wall. The drone will not allow you to push forward past this area or fly in this area. Typically, fencing exists in areas of great importance, like airports or government buildings, national parks, and certain cities and properties. There's ways to bypass this, but I strongly recommend you do not. Otherwise, you'll be breaking the law and you're subject to fine and imprisonment. Phone controllers versus Pro controllers really comes down to the screen and the distance at which you're able to fly. Again, for example, when you're flying with the standard controller, you're going to have to use a phone because you need to see the screen at all times to really see what you're recording and what you're getting out of the camera. The other thing too to keep in mind with the Pro controllers is that a lot of the times you get more distance out of the controller. Let's say that 1 mile is on the standard controller. Maybe now the Pro model gives you 3 to 4 miles away from your drone controller, which will really help in the long run. When using the controller, the screen is going to be everything, like I mentioned. So what does the screen exactly do? For example, you get distance from you and the drone. You'll get the altitude of the drone, the ability to switch between photo and video. There will be a map of the surrounding area and geofencing so you know where not to go. Features like active track, you can cancel or start that as on the screen. RTH is going to be a big one, return to home, and then immediate land. These are all features that are available on the screen. Much like the action camera, you need them to tap and to start and to stop. Now, understanding permits in the FAA. FAA is the Federal Aviation Association. Keep in mind that while you have a drone or a product like this, you have a product that is also in the air, meaning it involves other people, it involves federal area. It's a product that is required with the flying and regulation of the U.S. government. So for example, the mini drone, you don't really need anything because they're under 249 grams. So there are 2 permits that you can purchase. Let me start there. If you have a drone under 249 grams, you don't need any permit of any kind unless you are doing commercial work for business or pay. But if you are doing work for commercial business or pay, the permit that you're going to need is your Part 107. You pay about $175, take a course on flying. After completion, you're now registered to do commercial or business-based work with a permit. The question you can always ask yourself is, am I flying and what I'm recording on my drone, is it for me or for someone else? And is that other person paying me, or am I donating this? That's the question. If your drone is above 249 grams and you don't want to do commercial work, all you have to do is register it, and that can be accessed on the FAA.gov website. It costs about $5. It includes a course and information needed to be read. After completion, you must clearly write out the permit number on the drone, and from there you can kind of get started with everything and not have to worry. If you're ever stopped by a federal agent, they should just be able to look up the permit number and let you on your way, because these are federally controlled, not state or local. Here's some clips of what the drones look like. When you ask yourself, do I really want to get into this? These are some of the clips and things that you can take a look at to really see what you like. For me, it's a really cool, fun thing with the drones that you're able to get really awesome video and photo. You're able to get awesome tracking features on there as well too. Just larger than life kind of styled videos that are just fun and cool to play with. So definitely worth your time, your investment, your energy. If this is something that you're interested in doing and adding to your repertoire of gear, I definitely would recommend it. Why use a drone overall? It's, again, something to add to that repertoire of cameras and gear that we have. It's to reach new heights that you've never been able to do without having to rent a helicopter or some other form of professional setup. It gives you, the end user, the flexibility to have just more fun with your camera and add another skill to what you already have as a videographer or photographer. So strongly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, very cool. Camcorders, it's one of the last things we're going to talk about before we get into Insta360 cameras, and then we'll end this class up. Didn't want to take up too much of your time today, but I appreciate everyone for joining and watching. Camcorders are great because they are made for mainly video. Now, some photo applications can be on there, but this, again, if you're buying a camcorder, you should be buying it because you are interested in video. First and foremost, you got the power button on there. That's your ability to turn it on and off. The record button, that's your ability to start and stop the video. Zoom toggle, that's your ability to get a wide or tight focus on the video. The photo button itself takes your picture. The focus knob and dial is your ability to focus in with the camera and make sure you have a clear and crisp shot. Iris and aperture control dictates how much light comes into the camera, but also your background to foreground separation. Shutter speed controls the speed at which the shutter is opening and closing. White balance controls the view of white that we have on the camera and makes sure that it's balanced based on the other colors or lighting environment that we're in. And then playback controls. That's our ability to play the video or photos back that we've taken on there to see exactly what we've recorded and how it looks. Very similar to how other cameras in the camera world are laid out and made. Now, important settings that are on the camcorders. They're not necessarily unique to everything, to other cameras, but it's important that you know what's on there so that way when you were going through this, you set the proper stuff. So for example, video quality. Setting your camera for HD, 4K, or any other qualities your camcorder is capable of. That's huge. So making sure that you have the video quality that best suits you or what you're doing. Image stabilization. Setting your camera to have image stabilization on will ensure you have a non-shaky video. Face detection. So most camcorders will have an auto face detection, which depending on what you're filming, can help you keep humans or animals or things that have faces in focus. Frame rate, that's the rate at which you're capturing frames on your video. Less rate, better for simple or standard videos. Faster rate is always better for sports, action, or slow motion. Your bit rate, this helps your camera take in information. The higher the bit rate, the more info your camera is taking in. Why does that even matter? It matters when it comes to editing, color correction, and anything else that you're interested in doing. You got to think about it this way: with the professional people of, Paramount Pictures or Warner Brothers or Disney or anybody who makes videos for a living, TV shows, movies, well, they're doing a higher bit rate so they can really customize, edit, and fix their stuff after the fact. And exposure control. That controls the darkness or lightness of your video, which is extremely important. Why use a camcorder? I think the best way to describe it, because a lot of new cameras are doing that sort of thing, where they're hybrids and they do fantastic photo and video. Camcorders are for a couple different users, where it's the ability to have something that's compact, portable, and easy. It's the ability to have something that's only for video shots. It's something that gives you a feel of being more of a movie director, has more of a cinematic value, and has really nice customizable inputs that are very unique to video and movie shooting. I always tell people that if you're interested in getting into cinematography, then you probably want to either make sure you buy one of the higher end cameras that has 4K with the best frame rates on there, the best bit rates, and with the best type of video playback and features. Or you probably want to look at a camcorder or a higher end video style camera. Last thing we'll talk about are 360 cameras. Probably one of the most hot and popular cameras nowadays when it comes to these mini cameras. These 360 cameras are not necessarily lighting the world on fire, but they are one of the coolest things out there, and you're seeing more and more people invest in them because of the control and the customization that they get. So things that you get on a 360 camera. Works and functions like all other action cameras, can go underwater, all that good stuff. 2 180 degree firing cameras, meaning you're shooting in true 360 fashion. Works with one or both cameras. Can hide or make your selfie stick invisible. Creates a third-person view unlike other cameras. Videos can be viewed fully with a VR headset. And they're small, compact, and durable. So all great things, very similar to your action camera lineup, except now you're shooting in 360 degrees, which is awesome. Some of the things that you're going to see while using it is that full control over the camera, being able to flexibly choose the spot in which you're recording. You can get this kind of weird, worldly kind of video quality where it looks like you're really big standing on the earth. And my favorite part is that the usability on the apps and the interface that they have are so simple and useful that it's real easy to download, save, and play with the video that you've just taken on 360, as well as customize and control its focus points. One of my favorite things that the Insta360's reps were talking to me about when I got to meet them was that it's shoot first, think later, meaning that for those who just want to go and enjoy the event or wherever they're at and they don't want to think about what they're recording or doing, they can easily shoot first and then edit and play with it later like they're just doing it now for the first time. So it's so simple and easy, and I really do think it's worth it. Why use 360 cameras? It's really to add something super creative and very unique to your camera repertoire and what you have available. It gives you, the user, the flexibility to play with the kind of final image and make sure that whatever you're getting is special and unique to you. And it's becoming more and more popular because of the fact that you shoot first and think later. You don't necessarily have to sit there on the spot and plan all your shots out and make sure you get it. You can really just record and go after it, and then at a certain point in time, go back in and edit and update and change things based on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, which I think is a really fun and awesome thing. And that's all I have for you guys. Next Thursday is going to be the first Thursday of the month, so that is going to be the basic camera class, or our beginner class. Now, next month, as unfortunate as this may sound, I'm going on vacation. So after next week, We're going to switch up the camera class days a little bit more, and I'm going to have that schedule for you guys starting next week, and I'll break down what we're doing, everything. The goal is probably going to be that we do all the classes at the end of the month. Since I won't be here, I don't have a person who can sub in for me. But we will have this Thursday's basic beginner camera class, where I break down the very fundamentals that you should be knowing about before you really get into photography. As well, then from there we might be able to do the next day the intermediate class. When I'm back from vacation, we can then do the advanced and then the other one. But I'm going to hammer out that schedule and kind of get more into detail with my crew, get that relayed to you guys. Next Thursday is when I will announce what the schedule for the month will be. So thank you for joining, everybody. I'll give everybody a couple seconds. I see I have a couple viewers here. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can chat away. If you don't feel like chatting in and you really have something in particular you want to talk to me about, give me an email, shoot me a call, whatever's easiest. I'm always available, except for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm off. If you call me and I don't answer, I will by all means get back to you as soon as I can. But email is probably the easiest form of communication, because I can even respond to that on my off days when I'm not here in the store. So yeah, I'll give it a few more minutes, guys, and then we will probably end this video in class. Alright, well I gave it a couple minutes. Doesn't look like anybody has too many questions for me. So I appreciate everybody for joining and watching. Next week, like I said, will be the Intro to Cameras class. That's where we're going to do our very basic and beginners class. After that, we're going to have then intermediate, advanced, and then beyond the traditional again. The one thing I will say is that next week, Thursday, will be probably my only class for that for a little bit because of the fact I'll be out of town for vacation. But I will work with my team to figure out what the best course of action is for that and get back to everybody on that. So, as always, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. My name is Saxon, your camera class host. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, call me at that phone number or leave me an email from what I listed before, and I'll get back to you. So,